Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us here today. I appreciate the time. This is live streamed and recorded. Just looking forward to a real discussion on healthcare and all the new innovations going on in AI and agents. And this is not one of those sessions where we will not bring up AI, right? I mean, this is front and center in our lives right now. So first of all, it's a privilege to be back here. This is our fourth year in a row we've been doing this. I'm humbled to be here with four esteemed leaders at four organizations representing 16 of our states in the US. And without further ado, let me start with introductions. Mike, do you want to just introduce yourself, your organization, and span of control?
Sure. Thanks, Abbas. Mike Regan, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Banner Healthcare. I'm kind of responsible for traditional IT, digital, data, and all tech ventures. I just finished my year and a half, so I guess now it's all my responsibility. I can't claim I inherited it. But I've been in healthcare for over 20 years and been with four great organizations before joining Banner. Started my career at Providence Health and Services, went to Cleveland Clinic and was CIO of their international side at Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi, and then went and learned the payer side of healthcare with Centera in Virginia, and most recently, before joining Banner, Sharp Healthcare in San Diego. Really honored to be here with a great bunch of colleagues here.
Jeff?
Good afternoon. Jeff Hook, I'm the Chief Information Officer for Nuvance Health in New York and Connecticut. We are now part of Northwell, and so my span of responsibilities are data, AI, analytics, security, and the overall technology stack for the legacy organizations. We look to see how we bring the organizations between Northwell and Nuvance together. My history is IT and process improvement and statistics, so I love what AI and data is doing for us. I just wish we could figure out how to make it more practical.
Good afternoon, everyone. Raj Nair, CIO for Wellson's Health Plan. We're based out of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, part of Boston Medical Center. In addition to CIO responsibilities for the health plan, I'm also part of the Boston Medical Center technology leadership, overall team. Super excited to be here. My second time doing the panel. After last year, I wasn't sure Abbas will invite me back, so.
His nickname from last year is Ruthless Raj, so I'm just going to call you out there again.
And I'll echo what Mike said. It's a privilege to be here with some awesome leaders here.
Now I know why I'm sitting at the end of the line next to him. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Andy Crowder, Chief AI and Digital Officer for Advocate Health. Advocate Health is a new name. It's a merger of Atrium Health and Advocate Aurora. We're now the third largest health system in the U.S. with 165,000 teammates. We operate in 9 states, over 10,000 providers, and about 75 75 hospitals. I oversee all digital solutions, software development, app dev, strategic partnerships, direct-to-consumer digital initiatives, and the overarching AI strategy for the health system. Nice to be here.
Wonderful. And just a quick intro on myself, Abbas Muraj. I'm based out of Boston. I'm a proud alum of Mass Gen Brigham and Optum, part of United. And I serve as the cloud data and AI leader for health services for PwC. All right, so let's get into it. This is going to be, we're going to go on a journey from how do we even get to AI, right? There's no good AI without good data. You heard Matt Garman, you've heard many leaders talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about the new announcements that Matt and team made. Can't wait for Swami's keynote tomorrow morning as well. And then we're also going to talk about the value creation, value realization of AI at a health system, which is in dire needs of not just modernization, but there's so much margin pressure. There's now tons of regulatory pressure, even more regulatory pressure over the next 3 years. Health systems are going to have to adapt. They're going to have to leapfrog in a number of ways, and to get there and to thrive in the next 3 to 5 years. right? So let's start with the data journey. So Jeff, I'm gonna pick on you since we have your chief data officer in the audience as well. Talk to us about your data journey. You started early, and which was so refreshing to hear. Tell us about your data journey from 2020, 2021, what you've done on AWS, and where you are today.
Sure, thanks, Abbas. And this is my fourth time doing this, so if it gets stale, Abbas will have me boot off the stage. We started our digital journey based off data when we realized healthcare data is in silos. There's proprietary systems, whether it's your images, whether it's your call centers, go across the board. All your data is in silos, and each application wants to keep that data and keep that data that way. And so we realized that if we're going to be successful, we had to put our data into a single place that was safe, was secure, as well as it needed to be in the cloud. For those of us who have grown up in healthcare, a lot of what we do is moving data from point A to point B, and then from point B to point C, and then do it all again when we change the system. And so now it's about bringing the logic to the data rather than the data to the different systems. And so we put together a high-trust certified cloud AWS platform, had it audited by third parties, had it audited by second parties, and had it audited by our own security teams. And then we started looking at that of if we get the data there, then that is the point that we can start to work in how we integrate with other platforms, how we start to build our own applications, as well as innovation comes along, we have immediate access to those innovations. And so although some of our AI adoption, a lot of it is us trying it on our own, building and fail quick, succeed quick, the data is there for us to do that. And so that was how we began our journey. We were a very young system, so it granted me the opportunity to start over because we didn't have any infrastructure except for some legacy systems. As you have some more legacy, I think the story might be slightly different because you have significant investments elsewhere.
So what, Jeff, maybe a quick follow-up there. Why, so you went with, just to get the technology folks engaged in the audience here, you went with all native AWS. What sort of was the genesis of that decision, and any regrets?
I think the genesis was the goal was to avoid technical debt. Again, your teams are overhead expense, and I love my team members, but I want them helping us succeed, not having to babysit. And so we did go as much native AWS as we could. In some instances, that was wildly successful. In other instances, it's been a partnership to say, this isn't as good as we thought, we're gonna have to go elsewhere. And so it really was about trying to keep our limited resources of a small organization or smallish organization very efficient, very focused, and then going outside of that ecosystem when we had to, rather than shopping for the latest, greatest, because that could then keep us shopping all the time with lots of change and turnover. And similarly, you already have your data, you already have the systems, it's just an activation and code as infrastructure rather than I need a new MSA, BAA, and every other legal document that goes along with it.
Yeah, right on. Raj, let me go to you next here. So you are, you walked into a health system that had some, needed modernization on the health plan side. What was your thought journey? And I we'll get into AI in a minute, but like, you had the thought about having a dual strategy on. We need a modern data platform, but we also need an AI factory. So walk us through your logic and why AWS. What was your thought process there?
Sure. So, I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. When I first came in and I started looking, if you don't do AI and automation anymore, it's not just that you're going to fall behind, but you simply will not be able to keep up with the pace of change, the regulatory changes, right? And to do cost optimization, all of that, you need to be in the AI world anymore. Now, to do AI, like you said, you need data. So when I started looking at it, I quickly realized that this is going to be a fun journey, right? So, and what I mean by that is so we had numerous data warehouses. One that we would lovingly called new data warehouse, which was 4 or 5 years in the making. And it's a never-ending project, right? And the overall data quality was like really, really bad. Now, back in the day, I ran the data warehouse practice for KPMG, and I've seen some horror shows. This was like way, way worse than any of that. So, but in some ways, that made my decision easy to say, I'm not gonna worry about trying to salvage this. Let me just quickly start a cloud modernization and start, slowly decommissioning these legacy assets, right? But at the same time, I didn't want to wait till a year, 2 years to have my data platform where I wanted to be to start the AI journey. So then we started looking at AI use cases where we had a high level of confidence in the quality of data, or the data were unstructured, like documents and things of that nature, where we could go at it, right? So that was sort of how we approached it.
Mike, let me go to you. You were I'm gonna quote your Banner data platform. Maybe can you talk to us about your decision making? Why did you make the decisions you made, and where you are now?
You mean just around the data platform?
The data platform.
Yeah, I think much like all of you in the audience and my colleagues here, we've come from an environment where we had kind of one of everything. We've had, multiple, data warehouses of the future, things you can buy off the shelf, things we construct ourselves. And I think we quickly realized that we're moving from kind of this in a highly regulated industry that was very dependent upon, systems of record, meaning that this EMR was like the center of the universe and the ERP is the center of the universe, and we're moving to a different time where infrastructure becomes more the center of the universe. And so with that, we really wanted our data all in one place, and we wanted it to be able to be prepped and be able to be acted upon by AI, whether we buy that directly from partners or whether we wanted to have that something we construct ourselves and drive competitive advantage. And so Banner Data Platform is really kind of our vision for kind of putting all of our data under one roof, one giant lake house, or however you want to say that, primarily on Databricks on AWS. And so there's a lot of layers to that, a lot of technology, but we want to drive observability, we want to drive a new generation of code development and kind of a new generation of kind of software development practices. And so this is kind of foundational tech that we have another 3 years to say that we're going to have it all done. So this year was really about clinical data. So we have, I'd say a majority, if not all. It's not quite end of December yet. So all of our clinical data in Databricks in real time, being real time updated. And so now we can act upon that. A lot of that's curated, into a way that we can actually use it for AI. We've got a lot of work to do on our health plan side of the business to do that. Same with kind of administrative data, but those are the kind of coming years. And so we're tackling that as we have, as we go forward. But I think the decision is that data is probably your most important asset of the future. I would say domain knowledge, how your work happens at your organization, and data, all three of those being really important assets of the future. And so we really want to prepare and be able to capitalize on that. Along the way, we're doing everything we can to keep pace with the transforming, landscape of AI, but it's hard, but things change or are accelerating very quickly. And so, thoughts that we had about the data platform began this year, they've already changed. And so I think the right thing to do is to make sure you have great partners. Yeah. AWS and Databricks have been particularly good because they've really evolved with us on this journey, and they really enable us to kind of think, to that next level when we're really deploying, generative AI across the organization.
Yeah, we're going to get into AI, but we have to, obviously, we cannot have a session here without either talking about OpenAI, Anthropic, or Gemini, for sure. But Andy, let me ask you, like we've talked, I think Mike brought up a word, infrastructure, right? And we've talked about governance, from an AI perspective. You're the Chief AI and Digital Officer. Governance, culture, and infrastructure, right? And I think that is becoming, just from even today's session with Matt Garman, vitally important. The infrastructure piece, I think people have have realized, I think executives and boards are now realizing that without infrastructure, we can't really do anything. We can't really get into the workflow. But what's your thought? I mean, we a year ago today, today we were talking about ambient listening and imaging AI. What have you done at Advocate Health in your AI journey so far?
Yeah, so I think we realized, and Mike brought it up, you've got to be great at the informatics and the change management. You've got to have deep knowledge of your data and your clinical workflows. You've got to have a data platform, the right security, all of those things in place. What I would say is the thing that has given us the most value and speed to value quickest is our best place to care strategy, which galvanizes 750 of our change champions in clinical care with informaticists and our AI development teams. And so we go from pilot to full scale, we think faster than most because of that relationship and because of our governance structure. Although we're a new health system, the third largest, we have a centralized IRB, a centralized governance structure, and enterprise platforms and standards. So we spent a lot of time on platform rationalization for the past 3 to 5 years, and so we have less sources of that data to get into the right place, curated. And then, when generative AI exploded onto the landscape, 2.5, 3 years ago, we focused a lot on the framework for how we review it and monitor it at scale, closed loop process. We actually trademarked that as Fair AI. We share it openly for others to access and curate. Closed loop process, multidisciplinary teams that review those, model cards for every single piece of AI that we have in production, watching models in production, those type of things. And we think that those competencies in governance and change management from informatics point of view allow us to go from small pilot to full scale very, very quick. And our clinicians, it's interesting, you would think that some of the back office people would be leading the charge. Our clinicians are actually leading this charge, and now some of the back office areas are trying to catch up. So we're really excited about that. And in the places where we've deployed it, we've seen patient experience go up, clinician experience go up, turnover go down, and we're starting to see the value for these investments that we've made. And we believe that the health systems, and I think these health systems are examples of that make these investments now in all of those 3 pillars of expertise, we will differentiate ourselves in markets and with our competitors pretty damn significantly over the next 18 to 24 months. We consider ourselves to be a digital and AI first company. And that'll be part of our transformation agenda moving forward.
Yeah, just Andy, echoing that, I think the moves you made, for example, for those who are not familiar with the Fair AI framework, it is truly we consider it as well best in class, and we should all. I think it is public, right?
It is published, it is trademarked, and it's out there for all to contribute to and collaborate.
Yeah, but Andy, I'm gonna dive deeper a little bit. So walk us through your partnerships that you've built over the last couple of years, at least with I'm just gonna throw AI Doc and a couple of others as well. Talk to us about the partnerships you've made as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting because before AI hit, you could be in Series A or B and still have pretty significant commercialization opportunities or co-development opportunities. Now, because of the volatility, you've got to get up to early stage, early seed to actually have the ability to influence and do those things. But I think AI Doc is a great example, huge AWS platform play for them. We now have more medical imaging AI at scale. AI Doc says it's the largest in the world. I don't know how they quite come up with that, but I'll take the accolades on the stage with them. We have 15 algorithms in production today, foundation models. If you look at the shortage for radiologists and the burden and turnover that's in that space, I think every radiologist has 3.5 to 4 jobs when they come out of school. And so we've seen the speed to treat and turnaround time increase significantly where we have scarce resources. And we're not just doing that in radiology with AI Doc, we're doing it in pathology and cardiology and some of the other areas, and it has profound impact. We've got cases that we could highlight of where it caught on the last 3 panes of a scan, a PE or something like that would have gone totally undetected and would have been life-ending for someone. And so we're really excited about the benefits there. AI Doc is a great example of that. AI Doc actually serves as an advisor to our board, and we do the same for them, and we've got multiple other vendors that we've bet on. I do think it is about picking the right partners in this space that you can co-develop and co-create and take it to scale.
Wonderful. So maybe Raj, I want to ask you your thoughts on this, because you started again early in this journey. We talked about an AI factory, and what does that mean to you, and what is the construct for that, and what's the value realized? How do you measure that, most importantly, and how do you and of course you've paired up. I think the smartest thing was pairing up with your chief operating officer. But like how tell us about that journey.
Sure. So, part of prior to this role, I was at Optum for 12 years, and one of the realization was that you can't have to drive enabling and transformative capabilities like AI, it cannot be just driven by the technology leader. You need a two-in-a-box type concept with a business partner who has skin in the game and who is just as committed as that, right? So in this role, in the very beginning, I roped in my chief operating officer, and I said that, look, we have to do AI, but we have to do it together, right? And so that's been a great partnership. The other aspect of our AI program has been very, very focused on value realization. So we have about 40 use cases in production, about 60, 70 in backlog, right? It's the complete AI program is fully self-funded, and at this point is returning 2x, and in probably a couple of months going to be closer to 3x in revenue generation, right? So, and I'm sharing that because with that mindset, part of what I wanted to do was, I'm very big, like both Mike and Andy and everybody said, on having strategic partners, right? Like I know that I cannot do this on my own. We are also a safety net health system, so we don't have access to innovation labs and deep pockets to go innovate, right? So we've been very focused on bringing in partners who have that co-innovate, co-develop mindset, and it's been hugely successful for us. So if you look at my teams, you wouldn't know who my team members are versus who my partners are, right? It's a really nicely formed team. Now, the concept of AI factory was very important for me, because part of our approach in AI also was, once you prove out a capability for a given use case and it generates the value, we started looking at the backlog to say, what are the other use cases where the same capability could be applicable, right? So then it's a rapid deployment and you can scale. But to do that, you need this AI factory model where you had dedicated pods that can now take this capability, tune it, and rapidly deploy across these use cases, right? So while our AI program is only 2 years, that is the reason why we've been able to generate almost close to 3x in return. We wouldn't have been able to scale otherwise.
Do you feel that your platform that you've built, both on the data side and of course the AI factory side, you use a combination of, I wanted to get a real conversation going about, you use traditional AI, you use generative AI, you're multi-model, right?
Yep.
You primarily use Anthropic, right? Claude, I think it's both 4.5 Opus as well as Sonnet. But do you feel that you could do more there? Like what's your philosophy there on your LLM strategy?
Yeah, so I've approached this with the mindset that I'm going to be more focused on solving problems, and solving it with the cheapest capability, to be very candid with you, that also has the ability to scale to the extent that we need to scale, right? So as an example, there are models that at Optum I would have to have used that because of the scale that I'm used to. I don't need that here, right? So we were able to find models that is 100x cheaper than that, right? So if I'm being fully transparent, like cost is a big factor. And, I also want the ability, like, Mike alluded to things. Things are changing so fast. I don't want to lock myself into, hey, this is where I want to be. I'm looking at like what's good enough today, what gets me time to market, right, speed to value, that sort of thing. And then I also want to build it in a way where if tomorrow there's a better option, I want to be able to swap it out with very limited impact and adopt the new capability, right? So our whole philosophy has been based on, everything that we built is with that foundational mindset.
Love it. Love it. Jeff, so there's so much going on in the state of New York and Connecticut, right? Just as lots of legislation, regulatory, both at the federal and state level, right? So and you're obviously part of a much larger health system as well. Where are you on your AI journey? And, talk about some use cases that have really provided some value to you, and what's your plan for 26 at this point?
Thanks. And so I think I don't know how many of you in here are familiar with the healthcare industry as a whole, but if you look at the healthcare industry, productivity in the healthcare industry has stayed flat for decades and decades and decades. And if you look at other industries, finance, manufacturing, productivity increases year over year. And so as we look at, and sorry for the economics lecture here, but as you look at 20% of the nation's GDP is invested in healthcare, yet productivity has not changed over all these years, AI has been the lever. What is it? Archimedes, give me a place to stand and a lever and I can move the world, or at least I can move a few people. And I probably butchered that and may have borrowed that from a movie I just saw on the flight. So from that standpoint, I think AI is a great enabler, and we are seeing productivity. I think whether it's back office, clinicians, they also understand they can't meet the demand. I think Andy mentioned radiologists. There's a shortage of radiologists, there's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of everything in the healthcare world, which means then expenses go up because you have to pay premium dollars to recruit and keep. And so if we're going to be successful in this realm, we have to make sure, again, we can exponentially improve the productivity of a radiologist with an AI doc, or look at the data and how do we use ambient. Again, older, but we see that has returned and has increased patient experience. And so where we're looking at Nuvance and Northwell is how do we take the data out of our numerous EHRs, create that single lake, and then start creating those RAGs to bring that data forward. And so we have several programs. It's the monitoring that I'm seeing, Abbas, that we really need to do a better job. Data must have a meaning. I think all of us love collecting data. Data is wonderful. But if you don't know what it means while it's sitting there for you, the models are going to return erroneous content. And so from that standpoint, I mean, I used Claude the other day to ask a question, and it told me the wrong year and the wrong score and the wrong everything. And so if you have it wrong, you won't get the right results, which in healthcare will kill a patient. So we're looking at very much how do we make sure that our data is well governed, our lake is very well manicured, and then applying it to RAGs so that we start to reduce the amount of work for tumor boards, reduce the amount of work for registries. And that's really where we're focusing, is helping the clinicians get some of their day and some of their life back, while also looking at some of the back office, because clearly that is a huge opportunity. But as I think everyone said it already, you have to have the partners, and the partners have to be ready to partner with you. And without that, you're going nowhere.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please.
What is, and this I would have waited for the future one, but you brought up something I can't resist. I know you may be working on RevCycle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
What is RevCycle looking, forget 3 years, by the end of 2026?
Oh, I love thinking about the future. This is not the answer you're looking for, boss. RevCycle is hand-to-hand combat. Again, if you're familiar with healthcare, it's hand-to-hand combat, because the insurers take money out of their pocket and give it to you for services you were rendered.
You mean Raj?
Insurers. And Raj. Ruthless.
Luckily, there's no state overlap between you two. So
No, we're friendly most days. From rev cycle, it's going to be about creating the agents and creating the tools to counter the very deep pockets of the payers who also are incentivized to deny your claims. And Raj, I don't mean that like as a attack, but it is very realistic because the more money that sits in the bank, you know this, the more it grows. So by paying the surgery cost for my new knee, if I hold on to it a little bit longer, that's more interest. And so AI is going to be, how do we get faster pre-authorizations, how do we debate the denials, and how do we take all our contracts and maximize those contracts so we're getting paid what we should for the services we render.
Good answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. So you're doing, I happen to know some inside baseball, but you're doing some extremely innovative stuff in the AI space. So maybe talk about your AI journey and what you're doing, especially especially with today's announcement with Novasonic 2 and what's happening there. AWS is itself becoming an AI platform vendor versus an infrastructure provider, right? So talk to us about what Banner Health is doing there.
Yeah, I think this, I love what Raj and Andy were saying before about a lot of the things here about partnerships and about, lock-in and so forth like this. I think one of the key concepts, we recognized really early on was that data and process and domain knowledge being what it is, that when we think about AI, we have to think about it kind of end to end. It's the answer to everything. And that light took a long time to go off in my head. You hear, cloud code can increase the productivity of developer by 30%. That's not really the interesting part about it. It's not really that there's a productivity increase or you're going to, displace a certain function or it's going to, make something easier in rev cycle. It's about thinking about that end to end. And so it's like, I think we were talking with some of your colleagues at PwC about the early days in Amazon when they kind of automated Java development, and then they automated the deployment of that, and they automated the testing of it, and then they automated the fixing of the testing, and before long there was just a specification left, and there was really no human in there, but it was a kind of a complete end-to-end closed loop system. And I think that's the kind of journey that we're on in healthcare, is to figure out how do we enable those kinds of things to happen so that we can kind of automate that complete process. And we chose call center as kind of one of our first areas to kind of really look at in that area. And the announcement Novasonic, we've been building on that for a couple months now. Really kind of building conversational AI at the front end, and we've picked a couple of really key use cases like how to schedule appointment, reschedule appointment, cancel appointment, all those kind of calls that kind of come into a call center, and we're really in the process now of automating that with conversational AI. My belief is call center isn't really just call center. Call center is kind of everything. When you think about you calling HR at your job or you're talking to supply chain, you're doing anything inside your company, it's really kind of acts like a call center. You're calling and talking to another human being, you're trading information, you're getting an answer. A lot of that's going to be automated through the use of conversational AI. And so we're really excited about the work we were doing right now with Amazon, with Novasonic 2, Amazon Connect, and really kind of taking a look at call center in a different way. I want to kind of talk a little bit about the people side of that too, is I think there was a lot of recent research saying that the pace at which AI is going to roll out is really only constrained by the people. If people all know they're going to lose their job to AI, it's going to be really hard to kind of really do that. And so how do you kind of create an environment where people can help automate themselves out of a job and move on to the next part of automation in a health system and play a substantial role into that, get the retraining. And so we're right now in the process of really focused on the culture aspect to this and the retraining aspect to this, because there's a lot of, as that turnover happens, it's going to happen rapidly. We're going to figure out, areas that we want to focus on. We want to automate things. But how do we kind of create that workforce of the future that has those skills of, curiosity, that has the skills of continuous learning, that has the skills of really being able to help us automate that. So I think that's kind of part and parcel to this journey of AI, is really your organizational culture. And I think the last thing, I'd just say on that is we're a big believer in building it ourselves. And so I believe that your competitive advantage in healthcare or any business is going to be about your domain knowledge that you have of your own institution, how it functions, how it works, and the data and how clean that is and how that's going to be acted in AI and how you can build and automate that internal to your own organization. Now, I'm not saying you have to out-innovate the marketplace. There's no reason to not use partners, but I'm a big believer in, it's kind of like the old BPO model. Like when you think about business process outsourcing, you kind of lose a little touch. You're really kind of claiming to the world, maybe that's not my core business. Maybe I don't really need to do that piece and function in my company. So I think with AI, you got to be really thoughtful in your approach about when you bring in a partner and that's going to do all the AI on your behalf. Is that something that you need a core competency in your organization to do? Is it a bridge strategy that you're going to build it in the future? Is it something you're going to evaluate and kind of pilot and learn from? Those are all the kind of conversations we're having right now about how we can take it, leverage partners to the fullest extent for speed. And I have several colleagues in the audience today that would tell us, we got to go faster. We got to be able to help enable the business to kind of think through things and innovate at a business level. And that is sometimes done through partners. But we also got to be able to, where there's competitive advantage, where we want to drive distinction, be able to build that internally ourselves.
Love it. Andy, I'm gonna turn to you because I think you're innovating at a breakneck speed here, and I think Mike mentioned workforce of the future. Tell us what your secret sauce is there and your partnership model, just internally within Advocate.
You do need partners. If you're the person that's leading digital or AI transformation, especially with the AI component, you're either viewed as Santa Claus or the Grim Reaper. You're either bringing them great tools or you're there to take their jobs and help get reduction. And that's not a place you want to stand at alone. And so I think relationships and partnerships are really important. Fortunately for us, and I know many of the other panelists, it takes the CEO taking a position to say AI will be the operating model for the future, or how we're going to get to transformation in healthcare. So we want to be able to grow volume, outcomes, and profitability at a scale where operating expense does not go at the same level. And if you look at healthcare today, you normally grow major acquisitions and activities, margin stays the same, and that's how you get to a different bottom line. That's not going to work in the future. And if you look at, I talked about the best place to care strategy with the clinicians. I do have another partner. That's the chief clinical officer who has nursing and physicians. But I have another one, which is Nikisha Lopez, which is our chief people and culture officer. And she has it'll be trademarked as well, workforce of the future. She's calling it Work Forward. And our AI factory will laser focus on the areas that have the biggest opportunity for transformation. Mike just spoke about the contact center. That is clearly one of our pods in this environment. Revenue cycle is another. And we will systematically go through it, role by role, about what can an agent-first approach do to this, and what is the new work that they have to do, and how do I get them there. We're excited about that. In some of these areas, contact center and revenue cycle, turnover rates are between 18 and 35%. So it's not necessarily about eliminating jobs. If you just don't rehire through attrition over the next 3 years, the productivity benefit and outcomes will be significant. And so we're excited about that. I would say as it relates to the internal messaging on this and getting it right with our teammates, it's going to launch in Q1 of next year. We have a lot of work to do that. The places that clinicians are leading the charge, they know the shortages are so high that AI is just going to help eliminate the shortage. The back office members are a little bit, they're like, okay, what's going to happen to my role? So I think you do have to enlist the hearts and the minds of the right leaders on this journey and the right frontline teammates to be a part of that charge. So it's top down on the big use cases, but also citizen-led development in certain areas as a bottom up to galvanize the interest for them. And there's some overlap, but really excited about what that's going to look like. But you don't want to be leading this change alone, that's for damn sure. It's a lonely place to be.
Right. So I'm going to, for those that don't read Werner Vogel's, CTO of Amazon's yearly sort of 2026 predictions, highly recommend that. I'm going to quote what he posted last week. Instead of human in the loop, it now should be AI in the human loop. And that's a fundamental shift to what we've done for the last 20, 30 years, is build workflows and processes around people and technology. We should take another look at that, and we will. And Andy, I know you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we just launched 7 use cases in our contact center space, which are really about care management and care coordination. And it's AI first with escalation and off ramps to humans that can handle it. So, I don't ever want another situation where the first call or the first text message is on behalf of a skilled nurse or a provider. It ought to be these technologies and then the right escalations and oversight to make sure that when it hits a critical point, you've got a human in the loop. And I can remember saying that, with the clinicians, oh, it's human in the loop, human in the loop, human in the loop. And now I'm sitting here going, I got to come up with a different bimodal strategy on this, because that can't be the way we move forward, because we'll only get the 3 to 5% productivity gains. We won't get the transformation that we're supposed to get.
That's right. Raj, I'm gonna turn to you, because you you have, we talk, in the consulting, in the professional services, and in whatever you want to call consulting, and the forward deployment engineer now, right? But it is, you embody a quote that our senior partner said in an article. You want progress, but not perfection. And I feel you've embodied that over the last 2 years. Talk to us about what that means to WellSense, and part of what was your vision to actually do this, like incremental benefit versus a large benefit all at once. So talk to us about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it is just how I'm wired, right? I have a bias for action. I have very little patience for analysis paralysis, and because most of the time, majority of the input that you need to make a decision is already in front of you. Are you going to make that decision or not, right? And then you have to be comfortable adapting as things change, right? So that's always been my approach. And the other thing is, again, I didn't have the luxury, because of the financial stress of the health system and safety net and all that, to innovate and test and do a lot of POCs and stuff. I wanted the ability to pick 1 or 2 as we were just kicking off, and just absolutely hit home runs and drive the value. Because in the very beginning, you need to build credibility with everybody, right? So there's a lot of apprehension, like everybody talked about it, about AI. I wanted to get past some of that and demonstrate the value realization there, right? So that was fundamentally how I approached it. And part of it was to ultimately get the true unlocking of AI and the value realization, you need to do a complete business process reimagination. If you're taking the same crappy business processes that you have and you're looking to automate, yeah, you can find efficiencies 15% at this point here, 20% there. But you have to be able to step back and say, how should this be completely redesigned? Like Andy and Mike and I are saying, AI first, right? But to do that, you have to earn trust and credibility and build relationship where people are willing to come to the table. But at the end of the day, that to me is my biggest challenge now, because we've established a really strong program, but there's still a healthy fear in terms of, because when you look at this business process, very clear, these steps should just go away. But there's a direct people impact that is tied to those steps as well. And it's easy to say that we will train everybody in AI and stuff, but some people are just not able to or willing to, right? So those are some of the things that I would say, to always keep in the back of mind, that the change management aspect of it. This is why AI cannot be a technology push. You need to have the chief people officer, right? Your chief operating officer. You need that team to help the organization, get where it needs to.
Right. Jeff, this is So I know you and I have talked about what Raj exactly said, right? Don't agentify legacy dysfunction, right? How do you go into a complex organization, whether it's, regardless of size of health system, it's still complex. How would you approach this from a partnership? And how is AI impacting your people? I mean, I know it's from a software engineering perspective, it's reshaping the entire industry, right? And it's reshaping consulting, it's reshaping all software product as well. How do you approach it, and how will you approach it?
So a couple different levels. I have a personal model that's not based off a movie, that I just look for soft targets. Where are the soft targets? You see them all around your organization, whether you're in healthcare, whatever, your specific businesses, you see the soft targets. What is not working well? And most of the time, you then find who is the partner that wants to solve this with me. Usually they're reaching out to you, but there is, I think Andy said, Grim Reaper or Santa Claus. There's a lot of magical thinking about AI. I mean, there's a lot of hype, but the reality of how to make this practical, as Raj said, is process engineering, process identification, and change management. I think I've heard the word change management uttered a couple times. People have to be prepared for that. And so when you find those soft targets, then it's finding your partner and saying, can we create a solution together? And we deployed a solution with our HR team. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't sexy, but it was putting together and reducing some of the headcount, or not the headcount, but the amount of calls coming in so we could create answers. The product needs to be trained better, and so how do we work with that partner to say, how do we become better at this? What is their responsibility? And then are they going to own it within the company as well? I don't know how the other gentlemen are seeing it, but sometimes AI or technology is mine to own, and when it works, it's theirs to take credit, and when it fails, it's ours to fix. And so I think that partnership, again, it's said over and over again, is going to be very important, but it's making sure that you have the tools and the agents to rework that process. And if you have partners that don't have the vision for process reengineering, scrap it. Scrap it, start over, find those soft targets who want to work with you to make that change.
No, fail fast, learn from it, and rinse and repeat.
100%. And again, the willing partners, the process, the technology, go after it, go quick. And I think that's probably the one thing that all of us on the stage, and probably you all in here as well, we opt towards action. And if others don't want to act, then they will be a barrier to that. And so you must find a way to get through that barrier so that you can have the adoption of whatever technology is, whether it's boring old, I don't know, ERP, or it is AI to transform the world. Am I going to get canceled? I've just rocked on ERP and payers. So if I get canceled,
Mike, I know you're chomping at the bit. You have lots of thoughts here. So
No, I agree, but I also think there's, I think the whole tech governance moves too slow to manage this tech right now. I just really do. I can agree with Raj. I think there's more citizen-led AI development in the future. I really do. I hope so. I think it's kind of like trying to govern the internet. When we put it out there, we didn't say like, hey, you can only go to these websites to look at information. We let people, experiment. We let people go. And I think this is going to be so ubiquitous in everything we do. We're going to have, enterprise class AI that's got guardrails and got, everything there to kind of be, take the 80% use cases, but there's a lot of around the edge, type of stuff that we just need to automate, and we need to give the tools to the business and let them, go forward with it, in a safe fashion. But I'm a big believer that, sometimes you've got to prioritize where you put your resources in tech, but you've also got to move fast. And I think that speed piece is something we're grappling with. Like, how do you change the IT, the tech operating model to really enable a faster pace of deployment?
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, Andy. So I know we're all running out of time, but final thoughts from your side. How are you looking at 2026? Given that every month stuff changes every month, we're hopefully on the path to AGI, and what is first quarter? What does 2026 look for you in this area?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to break it into 2 or 3 categories. The first one is that, we believe that every clinical caregiver that's touching a patient or a customer should have augmented assistive AI at their fingertips over the entire ecosystem of the work that they do. And we also believe in citizen-led development on these type of activities. If I go back to the pandemic, when we had a common enemy and an urgency, we've moved more tech in 12 to 18 months than we did in our past 10 to 15 years. If it wasn't for the pandemic, virtual would not be commonplace. There used to be this belief that virtual care was not a replacement for in-person care. Bullshit, it is a replacement for in-person care, or at least a first and second and third choice. And so our data shows that today. So I think you'll see us continue mass deployments in the clinical ecosystem. I think that the AI literacy, the best way to raise AI literacy is have them using it and playing with it every day. And so, but if you don't make the investment in the platform and the data systems, you can't give them a safe way to do it. The other thing is that if you don't give them a safe way to do it with those platforms, they will find a way around you to use it in all kinds of unsecure places. So your safest thing is to give them a citizen-led development safe place to do it, to protect yourself. I think the third thing is doing the hard work that we've never done well, and I thought Jeff was going to talk about his first leader in the performance improvement space that he worked with, some guy, and we worked together, and Jeff came from the performance improvement side. That work of re-engineering and not spending your talent on 3 to 5% and really focusing on the hard re-engineering is where we have to go. We believe that we've got 29 million inbound phone calls a year, 15 to 20 million outbound a year. We believe that 65 to 70% of that should go away on people. An average panel size for a primary care provider where there are mass shortages in care and health inequities. 2,500 panel size? What if I can get it to 5 in the next 2 years? What if I get it to 7,500? What if your health system could make primary care profitable? Or a new version of that. Those are some of the things that we're looking at. It's just not about efficiency innovation, it's about business model transformation.
I love that. So pretend like it's COVID and move fast like it's COVID. I love that. Raj, final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'll just echo this. Speed to market and speed to value is everything, right? And, I also want to hit what Mike said. You have to enable people to come into this AI world and start participating, right? On one hand, we say that we want business to be willing and adopt AI, but then we tell them don't do this, don't do that, right? These two messages don't sort of
we're the no police,
right? Yeah. So it doesn't jive. So no, I would just echo what Mike said.
Jeff, final thoughts? Some predictions for 2026? Apart from the Lions winning it all?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think for 26, again, just you've already heard it. It's going to be about change, more change. We can't keep up. You can't keep up. Whatever you're working on is going to change. And so I think it's being flexible and clinging on to a quick life cycle. Purchase what you know you can use immediately for the next 3 years. Don't get sucked into tech debt. I think that's would be my advice. And then for us as a health system, we're now merging in our two technology stacks. And so it's about how do we take core competencies of our deep data knowledge with some of that citizen-led of Northwell, bring those together, and can we really start to bring that forward? And so I'm excited for what we're seeing. But again, if you don't know it, you probably are getting phone calls from a nurse, and that same nurse has to see you. That's not how we should be using our staff. And so as these gentlemen here spoke about, it is about reducing that load and making care to our communities a joy for these caregivers, not a pain in the backside.
Awesome. Mike, final thoughts? Any predictions for next year?
I know we're in a tough time in healthcare, and I think this is the kind of the year to make or break it. You've got to be deploying the tech, and there's a lot to do in 26 because, the regulatory changes coming a couple of years out, this is the year. So I think there's going to be a lot of progress made in our industry. I look forward to, hearing what all my colleagues do here. The time is now. So I'd say, this is a pivotal moment in healthcare, and I hope that the tools we have with generative AI, cloud, all the partnership, all the advanced tech we talked about here, are able to really put us back on top where we need to be. We have a goal to reduce administrative burden by 50% by 2028. And that goes across the board for all of our clinicians, about all of our, all of our staff. And, that's a real goal. And we really want to bring the joy back to practicing medicine for our clinical staff. We want the patients to be more highly engaged. We want to give them better, information and better content, more, eyes on the patient, not on the screen. And so we really feel like this is the moment of transformation. And so I feel like my whole career has kind of come down to finally we're in a position where we have the tools, the technology to actually take the vast amount of knowledge in healthcare and really put it to great use.
Yeah.
And be in service to the patients to make healthcare easier, which is really all of our missions.
Yeah, there was just to echo that, Mike. There was a recent VC case study on, I think it was Menlo Ventures, when they said healthcare is the number one, maybe number two, but number one sector industry where generative AI is being used for transformation, because we all feel that this is traditional AI was good. But this is so tangible, so action-oriented that this is I think 2026 is going to be a very transformative, actionable year that we can make a real impact to the health system. All right. But thank you again. Thank you to the panelists. Let's join me in a round of applause.